I suppose there aren't many ways to find out about a cheating wife. I dance with Marcy Blaine at Harvest Moon Dance, the club my wife and I belong to. It's the Southside Golf Country Club, one of the trendiest clubs in Chicago. Such unusual things make Lucinda happy, and I have the money to keep her happy. At least I hoped she would be happy. Anyway, Marcy is one of Lucinda's closest friends. She and her husband Charlie shared a table with us, and he wasn't a good dancer, so I played the part of the good guy, giving Marcy a chance to get on the dance floor. We slid across the floor, both of us tipsy, just relaxing, and I said, "You and Lucinda have definitely been spending a lot of time at the gym lately. Are you both training for a marathon, or just trying to get even better than you already are?" I was just chatting away, complimenting. Marcy and Lucinda are actually both great-looking women in their 30s, compared to my 40s, with long legs and amazing figures. But Marcy surprised me. She didn't pay attention, and without hesitation, said, "Gosh, Dave, I haven't been to the gym in weeks. I don't know why you." Then, belatedly, she must have realized she'd said something wrong. I think she and Lucinda worked out the story, and Marcy just forgot about it. I saw her looking at me in horror, so I pretended not to pay attention. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Marcy. I think you noticed Jack Yelenick at the end of the room. I haven't seen him at one of these dances in years, so what did you say?" I purposely gave Marcy a second chance, and she took it, watching me closely. "Oh, I just said that Lucinda works really hard with me. She's the one who's determined to stay young forever. I'd rather relax in the steam room." She laughed, and I laughed with her. I could see that she was almost sure she'd gotten away with it, and that was exactly what I wanted her to think. Inside, of course, I had a predictably queasy feeling in my stomach. If Lucinda wasn't spending a few hours at the gym 2 or 3 times a week, where was she? I never liked the term trophy wife, but I had to admit that Lucinda fit the bill. My first marriage right out of college ended a few years later, and I spent the rest of my 20s and 30s alone working up a sweat. I dated some, but mostly devoted myself to learning the business of financial services and starting my own firm. We hit the $100 million mark when I was 38, and by the time I was 40, I was worth about $12 million myself. We met Lucinda at a party and immediately became friends, not surprising, at least on my part, since she is very pretty and full of life, funny, confident, and intelligent. It is much less obvious why she was interested in me, although someone might have told her about my money. But she seemed to like me from the beginning. We met for 6 months or so before I asked her to marry me, and though I made it clear that marriage to me implied an ironclad marriage contract, she was happy to say yes. At her insistence, we had a big fancy Chicago social wedding, followed by a 3-week honeymoon in Bali, where she basically tried to fuck me to death. Did I mention that Lucinda likes sex? Either that or she loves to please me and knows I love sex. Either way, all the bouncing we did before and after the wedding made me a very happy man. Now, however, Marcy's occasional caveat made me wonder if I was about to become a cliché trophy wife's cuckold husband. It didn't take more than 2 weeks to figure out the sordid details. Lucinda was sleeping with Chris Remington, Director of Human Resources at Chicago Services, the charity for which she serves as a volunteer. Lucinda didn't want to work all the time once we got married, and that suited me fine. Apparently, they had been sweating in the bedrooms of various fancy hotels for months. God knows how they paid for the rooms, because Lucinda was careful to make sure there were no unexpected payments from her Platinum Amex card. However, all this fun didn't stop Lucinda from keeping my bed warm. Our own sex life was as vigorous as ever. I didn't know if she really still cared about me, or if she was somehow excited to jump into bed with me after returning from fucking her boyfriend. But it didn't matter. Now that I knew I was sharing her, our marriage was going to end. But you don't succeed in business by being hot and acting on emotion, and I was pretty successful in business. I decided to take at least 2 weeks to think about my options before I put the arrow down, on my sweet wayward wife. She would leave, it was decided. But I needed to know more first. And more had to do with a conversation on one of the audio tapes my detective agency told me about. They had all the audio and pictures I would ever need, but I didn't watch or listen to any of it. She was cheating on me. Our marriage was over, and that was it. No need to torture myself. But apparently her intimate conversations began to go beyond the usual, moving into the realm of, I can hardly wait until we're together all the time. And when are you going to get all your money together and leave your husband? That got my attention, so I did a little careful investigation and checking. It turned out that over the last 4 months, my loving bride had managed to sneak over $230,000 of my money. She was making the usual ATM cash withdrawals, not too much at a time, but much more often than before. And she would buy dresses, shoes, and accessories with her Amex card. I never limited her budget. And then quietly pay them back in cash. I know the stores won't let you do that. My guess is that Lucinda quietly worked with them, either because she was such a good customer, or because someone was getting a discount. Either way, she got away with it. So I caught Lucinda red-handed. But I didn't know where the money was, and I knew that $230,000 wasn't enough to keep her happy for long. So I wondered what the rest of the plan was. So I decided to sit quietly a little longer until I figured it all out. It wasn't until 3 days later that I got my answer. A young woman from First United Bank called my office to discuss my safe deposit box. Actually, our safe deposit box, because it was a joint account with Lucinda. The young woman, Judy Stenberg, was obviously a good employee, attentive and proactive. She had been working at the bank for only a few weeks, having gotten the job when she returned from Sweden, where she had worked for several years and acquired a husband. And she called to let me know that my wife had made a real scene that day. She tried to gain access to our safe deposit box, but Judy informed her that she couldn't open it unless I was also present, and signed the bank accounting block. Lucinda seemed to be overly demonstrative about her feelings, and Judy needed the help of 2 guards to get her to leave. It only took a few seconds before I realized that I now knew the rest of Lucinda's plans. In our safe deposit box, among various legal papers of no financial value, was some $2 million worth of jewelry that I had bought for my beloved wife, a dazzling diamond necklace, some diamond earrings, and a sapphire and diamond bracelet. I always thought that whatever my other charms, it was these expensive purchases of mine that convinced Lucinda of my potential as a husband. And now she seemed to view these trinkets as a stash for her and Chris, her young lover, to escape. A few more days of listening gave the rest I needed. Lucinda had already given Chris the money. She seemed to trust her lover a lot. They had bought plane tickets for 2 separate and elaborate trips to Rio de Janeiro. All that was left for Chris was to impersonate me at the bank and help Lucinda get the jewels out of the safe. After that, they would be on their way. Whoever said knowledge is power was absolutely right. The rest was child's play. On the morning of Thursday, November 19, Lucinda wanted to wake me up early. She had a good way of doing it too. She got me into the shower where we played a little while we washed up. That was a good start to the day. Honey, I said, isn't there a special occasion today? She smiled back and handed me my coffee. Not at all, Dave. I just wanted to make sure you knew how I felt about you. She came over and sat on my lap, snuggling up and feeding me a piece of bacon. We hugged and kissed for the rest of breakfast, and then I went to get dressed for work. As I was putting on my coat, she came down the hall and carelessly said, "Oh, by the way, dear, that damned board meeting has been moved up to tonight, so I may be rather late. It's a big nuisance, but I promised I'd go. Will you forgive me?" I got another big hug and a kiss along with the question, and of course I told her it was okay. It wasn't hard to see what she meant. She made me not care, giving myself a few extra hours before I wondered where she had disappeared to. I smiled as I sat at my desk. Today was the day and everything was in place. Lucinda's flight was scheduled to leave at 2:35, and Chris's flight on another airline was scheduled to leave at 3:15. My men would be at the airport by noon, and when Chris tried to board, he would be arrested for concealing over $10,000 in cash in violation of federal currency regulations. I had evidence to show that the money was mine. Well, mine and Lucinda's. And there was little doubt that he would be in jail for some time. But no one was going to bother Lucinda. She would check her bags, get on the plane, and be on her way. After about 19 hours and 4 flights, she would land in Rio, ready to begin her new life with Chris. Lots of money and lots of valuable jewelry. The only problem was that there would be no Chris and no cash. My phone rang just after 11:30. As expected, it was Judy Stenberg. "They were here," she said. "Just as you predicted, your wife came in with someone else. A tall guy, a little younger than her. He signed your name, and they spent a few minutes with the safe and then left." I smiled broadly. "Thank you, Judy. You've been very helpful to me, and I really appreciate you letting me quietly walk into my safe deposit box the other day once I explained the situation." I leaned back in my chair, savoring the vision of Lucinda on the plane, holding her big purse in her lap with $2 million worth of jewelry, unaware that it was all fake, worth about $150. Somehow I doubted that this money would be enough to give Lucinda the life she hoped for and was used to. "Listen," I said, "I'd like to express my gratitude in person. How about inviting you and Hendrik to dinner this Saturday, somewhere really fancy like Laurentine?" Judy giggled and said, "Thanks, Uncle Dave. That would be great."